special guest today is Dan Sisneros, who was just inducted into the New Mexico Boxing Hall of Fame on September 30th and has been involved with the sport of boxing for a long time. And, Dan, we're glad to have you.
Thanks, Ed. Glad to be here, man.
Dan, we had talked about this. You and I had talked on the phone more than once and talked about having you on and to talk about your boxing involvement. And it's a long one. You asked about Channel 26 and the public access, and you had the 8-count boxing hour, that show from 91 to 2015. And it's ironic now, this is Channel 26, and there's content with the city, and then ProView, and then downstairs is Channel 27. So you're back home in a sense. You come full circle without even knowing it. But, tell us a little bit about the Boxing Hall of Fame and the induction ceremony. It was at Roswell in September, and you posted a lot. We have some great pictures here in a little while. But tell us a little bit about that ceremony. I was really thrilled for you. It's an honor to be inducted in any Hall of Fame, period. So tell us a little bit about it.
Oh, totally. I mean, that's the word, is an honor. I mean, I just couldn't believe it happened, really. It's one of those things that I never really thought about since I never boxed. I did everything but box. When I got the call, we were in Disney World, and Louis Burke called me and said, hey, your name's come up again. This is the second time, like the second ballot, I guess. Sandy Pino got in the first time, which she absolutely deserved it. She's a pioneer of boxing, especially for women. And then this time, he said, you're on the ballot, send us some information. I said, well, we're at Disney World, with the granddaughters, and we're having fun. I'll send you what I can when I get home. And next thing I know, they said, Ray Baca, he's in charge of the Boxing Hall of Fame, called me and said, congratulations, you're in. And I just couldn't believe it, And then, I said, well, who else is going in? And he started naming the people, and he says, Rudy Lovato, the boxer from Albuquerque, the bad boy. And Rudy started out with a 8-pound boxing hour. He was on my very first episode back in like 1992, I think, or 91. I couldn't believe it. He was getting inducted the same night as me, and that just made it that much sweeter. He says some of the other names, and he says Joey Olguin. That's my dad's cousin. I didn't even know it. We started researching around, so it was just a blast. I couldn't believe it happened.
You talked about that, about your involvement with boxing, and I told you the reason I love boxing was my old man, my late father, was backyard boxing. Not much formal, but I remember one guy, he said, he just mentioned him in passing, K.O. Sanchez, I guess, knocked my dad out. That's all he said. But my dad, even when he was in his 70s, I'd mess around, he'd still block. But my interest in boxing was because of him. Mm-hmm. We'd watch boxing matches together. He was not an Ali fan. And I think because my dad fought in World War II and, Muhammad Ali refused induction, which my dad may have not really known all the issues. I think that might have been some of the things why he didn't like Ali. But that's okay. Everybody, has their own favorite fighters. But that's where my interest came from, was my father. Mm-hmm. And you didn't box, but so what? You tell us about how because you got involved a lot. I mean, you got VHS tapes, and we'll get into that later.
Okay.
But tell us about your involvement and why you got involved with the sport of boxing.
Yeah, well, pretty much the same thing. My dad, he wasn't like a big sports fan as far as like football and basketball and hockey or anything like that, team sports, but he loved boxing and wrestling. He just loved those two. So as a kid, that was the connection that I had with my dad, and I think that's what made me just fall in love with the sport. And he would take me down to the Olympic Auditorium in Los Angeles, kind of a small venue. And I still remember the first time I walked in there, because after seeing boxing on the TV, the ring looked gigantic. It looked like this big ring. And when I saw it, that little ring in the middle there was smoke in the building, and it was just, I can still see it. And I just fell in love with it. I mean, Danny Little Red Lopez and Bobby Chacon at that time, Hedgemon Lewis, there was just some. Jerry Quarry was there. These warriors,
Lamone?
He would come down and fight sometimes to L.A. Yeah, he was popular with the Mexican fans down there. But it just, I just fell in love with it. I mean, these guys were amazing. You could kind of see them up close, and I don't know. And then he would take me to wrestling too, and that's a whole other story. But pro wrestling and boxing, I mean, that was where I got it. Kind of like you, the love that my dad had for the sport. I guess it just. And it seems to be in the blood with our family too, because it's a kind of a long story. But I was adopted, and my older brother, I hadn't really been close with him. When we finally connected, He was a super boxing fan. He was just nuts about boxing, just like I was. I couldn't believe it. And I said, you know, it's in the blood. It's got to be.
You know, when you mentioned the LA Olympic Auditorium,
Yeah.
there's some great fights that have
Yes.
taken. You mentioned some great fighters, and no wonder it got deep into you. It's exciting to watch that. When we cover boxing for ProView Networks, we're right there ringside. We've had blood, you know, sweat.
Yep.
You know, it's exciting. It really is, and it's warriors. There's an art, the sweet science they call it. You've met some great boxers. We got some great pictures. You've met Riddick Bowe, Sugar Ray Leonard, Johnny Tapia, Danny Romero. You know, we can go on and on. There's we'll see those pictures in the second segment.
Yeah.
But we also want to talk about the 8-count boxing hour. What a show that was. And you know, you worked with the legendary Henry Tafoya on some of that, and you guys tell us how that came about, because you mentioned to me it was kind of done. You know, unorthodox. You're not professional, you said, but it turned out as a professional product, I think. Tell us a little bit about how that came along, because that show is still talked about. You know, your presenter Andy Rivera, he's got BoxingNewMexico.com, who's a new site that he's had out for a while, and he's really putting out a lot of great content on there. Talked about that show all the time, along with several other people. So tell us how that show came to be.
Yeah, that, you know, quite a few people have asked me that, and I kind of think back, and how did I get here? How did this happen? But actually, you know, when we moved to New Mexico from Los Angeles, I saw Channel 27 on the cable, and I thought, wow, this is neat. You know, this public access. Anybody can come in here and show anything. Can I show boxing? And I called them up, and they said, sure. You want to start a boxing show? So I did. And like you said, I have just thousands of VHS tapes. I've got, you know, like local fights from around the country that we would trade, and I would build up my collection. So I said, this is a great way I can show these fights that may never be seen. I can put these fighters out there. So I started the show, and I didn't know that some of the guys from the Boxing Commission were watching the show. I didn't know that. And I was at an event one time, I think it was an amateur kickboxing event, and I had my little VHS camera set up on the tripod. And here comes a gentleman, walked up to me, said, hey, my name's Max Abeda. I'm the event coordinator. Yeah. Do you know Max?
I've heard the name.
Yeah, the late Max Abeda. He was a dear friend. I just loved Max. Anyway, he said, you know, we've been watching your show, and all the commissioners, we've been talking about it, and, you know, we think you'd make a great boxing judge. And I just like, what? A boxing judge? Me? He said, yeah, you know, you need to come down and fill out an application. And so he told me the whole process, and I said, you know, let's do it. So I did that. And so I became a boxing judge through the show. And with that show, though, Ed, the thing is I was able to just meet all these boxers, and it's like boxing in New Mexico was like hungry. They wanted you to come and be part of it. You know, like you can't just say, I'm going to start an NFL football show and be part of the NFL. It doesn't work that way. Boxing, though, is kind of like a niche sport. You know, it's kind of a smaller community, but it's tight. And next thing I know, you know, I'm a boxing judge, and I'm sitting up against the ring at ringside, these boxers that I just respect and love to see in action, and I'm judging their fights, and I couldn't believe it. But the show led to that, you know, and people, they would approach me all the time. Can you put my fighter on? We're having an amateur event. Can you come down? I'd bring the camera and run down there and, you know, videotape the fights. And so it was, the show just, you know, it just opened doors. It opened doors. Next thing I know, I'm writing for boxing magazines, and, you know, next thing I know, I'm this and getting involved, working the corner for Daniel Perez up in Colorado.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Daniel Pitbull Pettis.
Daniel Pitbull
One
Pettis.
of the best fighters, Albuquerque's, you know, 89-13 as an amateur.
89-12 as an amateur,
12.
yeah. And yeah, he's one of very underappreciated, I think, because he was just amazing. I thought he was really excellent. But yeah, next thing I know, I'm even working the corner with Joe Turrieta, was his trainer at the time.
Turrieta?
Yeah, and
a guy at South San Jose, Jack Conladia now.
Yes, and so, you know, I'm making friends, and I'm meeting people. Then I'm writing for Pro Boxing Update. Next thing I know, it's just, you know, it's like a snowball going downhill, and it's just building up, and it's just been a fun ride, Ed. I don't know.
You know, unbelievable. What a great story. It's almost like, you know, the world that opened up for me after I retired, as far as media with basketball and football and, you know, the sports that I've been crazy about. I love boxing too. I've been able to do some play-by-play for the Pettis brothers. You know, when they have fighting cards, boxing cards, and gosh, those are always really exciting. But what a world that was opened up for you, and ended with you being inducted into the New Mexico Boxing Hall of Fame. What an honor. Yeah, I got to ask you, you mentioned a lot of fighters, Rudy Lovato, Johnny Tapia, Daniel Pitbull Pettis, Andy Rivera.
You know, and he was that warrior style that fans love. I mean, he would just go in there head to head. He didn't care. You hit me, go ahead. I'm going to hit you back. People love that style. But then what about guys like Louis Burke? You know, is a great fighter, fought Freddie Roach twice. And, you know, he's another guy that he became a good friend of mine through boxing. And back in those days, yeah, like Danny Romero was coming up. He was just an amateur kid. Johnny Tapia, when I first moved to New Mexico, he was in all that trouble, you know, with losing his license and the drug problems and everything. And it was like, looked like he was done. And then here comes Danny Romero coming up in the amateurs, red hot, you know, looking like he might make the Olympic team. And so all this drama was happening, and it's like I was just there at the right time when everything was happening, and New Mexico was, you know, kind of getting onto the boxing, you know, the map for pro boxing. But there was a lot of like local guys that weren't, like Ricky Ortega, I remember, well, Frank Archuleta, Chris Linson from Santa Fe.
Chris Linson was inducted in the Boxing Hall of Fame about 4 years ago.
Yeah, he was an exciting, good fighter, and like, you know, you could go to these local fight cards, and all these guys were really entertaining. They were exciting. They were entertaining. They weren't dancers, and so they built their careers here in New Mexico, and you know, a couple of them went on to fight for world titles and all. A kid named Andres Fernandez. I don't know if you remember him. He came from Mexico, and he was training here. Melchor Chavez was training him.
I remember Melchor Chavez.
Yeah, and Andres, he did some things. He fought on HBO, you know, and I think he fought Bones Adams, I think it was. But there was some fighters that started, like Frankie Archuleta, he started to make some noise, you know, and like they didn't quite get to the top level, but they were very good fighters, really exciting. And I was glad to be part of it. It's just fun. I couldn't believe it, you know.
What a dream. You know, it's like me being involved with what I'm doing now with, you know, retired. Being involved doing basketball, all the things I get to do, my wife says that every day I'm living the dream, and it's true. Dan, we're going to take a break, and then we come back, we'll show those great photos you have. Okay. People aren't going to be able to believe them after these messages on the Sports Desk.
It's a fake. They have a man. It's a conversion. On the fake, it's complete. Out wide to the big tight end, David Butler. And it's a Rams first down. It's tough. I'll say he stepped out of bounds at the 15. Right back to it, and he is in. Touchdown for Charles Lopez Burton.
Us has some time. Josiah Mitchell, it's intercepted. Touchdown. It'll go the distance, and Jared Meechan.
Bunch formation to the left. Cabrera, the handoff. Cabrera's got some room. Up the middle of the 45-40. Foot race to the end zone. Cabrera trying to outrace the Matador secondary. Dash drug down, touchdown, I believe. That'll be a 70-yard touchdown run, and it is. Cabrera of
right alongside. We expect to be a low-scoring game. Garcia has a lot of speed. Garcia is gone. Nobody gonna catch him. Touchdown Vikings. Daniel Garcia with breakaway speed.
yeah.
See if he can get the same sort of magic. This time he looks to his right first, then he's looking to his left. He's going to bomb this out there for Moorhead again! Jahari Moorhead! My goodness!
Kyle Evan Huss back to work on the option. He'll flip it out. Big time hole there. See you later. One play and to the house for Malachi Gutierrez. Hanson rolling. pressure is coming from the side now. He's rolling, goes down the field, open man, touchdown! Elijah Hansen connects.
And that will be blocked up front, picked up, and I think we've got ourselves a return for a touchdown. Jace Henderson, the sophomore, has a million.
I don't know if I could have done that or not. Remember all those signals to give the quarterback.
Rivera throws over the middle, intercepted.
Guess who
Third
that
is
is?
there's Megan Post.
Guess who that
Megan
is?
Posa. Posa down the right side, still on his feet down the left side now, cuts it back up to Haas. Posa may score. Post still on his feet, dragging the tackle to the end zone, dives in, touchdown, I believe. Let's see, touchdown.
That has to be a
Megan
touchdown.
Posa.
We would like to thank the following sponsors for making this broadcast possible.
It is ours, made and played in New Mexico, and we share it with the country. The Isleta New Mexico Bowl, celebrating college football, Albuquerque, and New Mexico. The 18th annual Isleta New Mexico Bowl is Saturday, December 16th at University Stadium. Be a part of the pageantry and tradition of college football's postseason with a unique New Mexican flavor. Annually, one of the best and most exciting and fun games of the season. Visit NewMexicoBowl.com for all your info. The Isleta New Mexico Bowl, where bowl season and the fun begin.
For 50 years, Clark's Pet Emporium has been your pet's favorite stop. Santa Paws has left thousands of holiday gifts for your furry, scaly, and winged family members. Pick up a gift for a pet lover or even a new pet. Clark's has shelves full of pet beds, sweaters, toys and treats, habitats and tanks galore. Locally owned and operated with 2 convenient locations for all your pet needs. 11200 Manal Northeast or 4914 Lomas Northeast. Clark's is celebrating 50 years. Thanks to you, the Christmas Superstore. ClarksPets.com.
A burglary takes place in the United States approximately every 15 seconds. International Protective Service is your answer for commercial and residential security in all of Albuquerque. IPS will work with your monitoring company for fast, reliable response times. You can rest easy knowing you, your family, or your company is watched over by International Protective Service. Call International Protective Service today.
Welcome back to the Sports Desk Live on Comcast Channel 26, also streamed on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez. Our very special guest today, Dan Sisneros, who was inducted into New Mexico Boxing Sports Hall of Fame on September 30th. And great conversation, Dan, about your, especially about the 8-second boxing, what was it called?
The 8-count boxing.
8-count boxing hour.
Yeah.
And you just were mentioning some of the, when you were here, boxing was, and I don't know, has it not ever been hot here? With Bob Foster knocking out Dick Tiger in 1968. Bobby Foster fought Jorge Ahumada here in 1975 at the pit. Controversial decision. Foster got it.
Yeah.
But Bobby Foster, geez, that guy's one of the greatest,
Oh, yeah.
and some say the best.
Yep, I hear that.
Archie Moore, they said Archie Moore, they rank him. But Bobby Foster, man, fought Ali, fought Frazier. That left, I had to knocked my quarry out with a hook that I had to watch 4 times to see where it came from. I didn't see it, and knocked him out cold.
Oh my goodness, that was scary. Yeah, that was impressive. Bob Foster, man, I just loved Bob. He became a referee with the Boxing Commission when I was a judge. And again, like I was telling you earlier, one of those, I can't believe this is happening. Here I am, I'm the judge, and Bob Foster is a referee for this fight. I'm working with Bob Foster, the great, legendary Bob Foster. When I first moved to New Mexico, I went down to South San Jose just to see what was going on, and I looked and I saw this guy and I go, is that Bob Foster? I could see him in there, and the guy that was like taking people to come in, he goes, yeah, it's Bob Foster. You want to meet him? I'm like, Bob Foster? Yeah, come on. He loves the attention. I walked in there. I'm meeting Bob Foster. It was just so cool. He was in his, work uniform with the sheriff's department. Yeah, in there training fighters. And he was, I just loved Bob.
I don't know, do we give him enough credit? I don't know. I was asked that. Should there be again, Danny Romero, great boxer. Johnny Tapia is gold here in Albuquerque, Holly Holm, Sean McLean.
Yep.
They were
Austin
champions.
Trout.
Austin Trout from Las Cruces. We
Yes.
can't forget about him
No.
still fighting.
Yeah.
But Bob Foster, man, wow. He knocked down Ali. He got knocked down. There's some great pictures. There's
Alexis Arguello, yeah.
These are unbelievable pictures, and there's
Floyd Mayweather. That was his third
Pretty
fight.
Boy. Was he Pretty Boy then?
Well,
right?
I think he was.
Not money.
That's at Tingley Coliseum. There's a Ray Boom Boom Mancini. I met him here at
a young-looking dancer.
Roberto Duran. Yeah. That's at Tingley Coliseum. Yeah, that was an honor to meet the great Don King. Yeah.
Only in America.
He's a lot of fun. He's a character. And that's the poster from the Hall of Fame. I just couldn't believe it. Just couldn't believe it. And that's the program from the Hall of Fame.
There's some great pictures we have here to share with you.
Rudy Lovato. I was so honored to be inducted the same night with the great bad boy of boxing. There you see Andy Rivera there on my right, and was it David Finger, his name on the left? And there's all the inductees. Yeah, James Myers, Willie Hall Jr. What a night.
There were some pictures there of Riddick Bowe. You met Riddick Bowe. You've met Sugar Ray Leonard. You've met all the greats. Is there a memory that stands out more? I mean, Duran is my favorite fighter. Him and Ali are my favorite fighters. Manos de Piedra, Roberto Duran.
Yeah.
I have the book Hands of Stone by William Knack, and I think I've read it 3 times because that guy was from the streets and mean as heck, man, right? Supposedly knocked out a horse, and that's where he got the nickname Hands of Stone. Is there a memory? I mean, you mentioned this. You mentioned you met Bob Foster, and you're overwhelmed. Is there a memory that stands out more? I mean, you met them all. Look at those pictures. Is there a memory that stands out more to you? You met Don King, the promoter. Is there a memory that stands out more than the other?
Well, I went to a boxing event one time with my daughter. We were in Las Vegas. The whole family went, but my daughter and I went to this one boxing event. It was at the old Riviera. It was outdoors, and Roy Jones was there. And at the time, he was super hot. He was like the hottest boxer, and I just thought he was incredible. He was amazing, knocking people out and just... So I kind of approached him, and I walked up to him, and I said, "Hi, Roy. I introduced myself, and he's like, "Oh yeah, come on, let's take a picture," And we just kind of hung around at the fights there for a little while. He's just like he was my buddy, And I was like, just wow, I'm hanging out with Roy Jones. This is so cool, And one other thing is, when they had a big fight event, I think it was a Johnny Tapia fight at the Pit, and Michael Buffer was the ring announcer. I think they were ESPN fights, and.
There's a picture of you in there with Michael Buffer too.
Yes, there is. There is. So I was going to go meet him and get his autograph and take a picture with him, and people said, no, don't approach him. He's really mean. He won't talk to you. And I said, are you serious? They said, yeah, don't. You probably shouldn't. And I thought, oh wow, okay. And I kept thinking, I'm still going to try. So I walked up there. He was like the nicest guy, and he was like clowning for the camera, and he was taking pictures, signing autographs, and Bonnie Greathouse from the Channel 27. So I got her an autograph, and I said, "This is for you, Bonnie." And I mean, Michael Buffer was a blast. So I don't know what that was all about, but that was pretty fun too. That people were saying, "Don't approach him," and he just couldn't have been more friendly.
It's funny. You mentioned Roy Jones, and the only guy that I ever saw have a rap show coming into the ring before a fight. Do you remember that? I mean, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, look at this dude, man. He's having a rap show and dancers, and then he's fighting. And I'd like, come on. To me, that was a little much. To me, and then Glenn Johnson knocked him out one time. But Jones again, one of the greats.
Oh yeah.
And you mentioned your love for boxing, and you served as you also a writer, a judge. You got to be on camera, and really, you know what, Dan, we got to give you a lot of credit for what we've done here. You paved the way for that. For what we've done here at ProView Networks with the Legacy Boxing Promotions. We had a show for a while. That I was a host of.
I remember.
But a lot of that came from you. So you know what? We're glad to have you on, man. And you know what? We're glad to talk about you being inducted into the New Mexico Boxing Hall of Fame. It's important to acknowledge pioneers, and you got a humble attitude about it. You appreciate the opportunities that you had, and that's great to look back on and share these memories with you. I'm glad we had you on, or had you on. We're not done yet.
Thanks, Ed. No, you know what? I thank the Lord because my Lord Jesus Christ has blessed me, and this is one thing, like maybe some people might think boxing is a violent sport. I don't see it that way at all. I never did. I see it as a beautiful sport, and there are safety factors. The referees are supposed to protect the fighters. The amateurs, they're super protective of the fighters. The pros, bad things happen, yes, but they do their best. These men want to compete, and I appreciate the art, the
sweet science.
All they put into it, the training. It's like they just don't get the recognition. people just see him on TV fight night, and they think that's all you do. You get fight. You made $10 million just for 45 minutes. If they knew behind the scenes what's going on, they would appreciate it much more.
Referee stoppages, Chavez, Taylor, very controversial. Richard Steele stopping it, and I thought it was the right call. I did. And then Lou Duva coming on the apron going crazy. Duran Moore in '83 should have been stopped a lot earlier. Roberto Duran had really given Davey Moore a tremendous beating.
Yes.
And it's tough. So you mentioned that. The boxers, we've had them on shows. The Pettis brothers, damn, I love those kids.
Oh, I love them.
I love Abraham Pettis, that kid, and Angel, and the family. Jordan
they're
Pettis. They're first class. Aaron Pettis, first class all the way. I think Abraham's going to be a champ. I really do. And not a mean kid at all, but man, he gets in that ring.
Yeah.
So you kind of wonder where that. Ask him, where's that come from, man? But you did so much here for local boxing. Is there anybody you're keeping an eye on for the future? For either here or nationally? Is there anybody that you really like to watch?
Well, I'd like the Perez brothers. You mentioned them, Abraham and Angel Baby. I think they could do a lot. I'm proud of what some of the other boxers, Jason Sanchez and
fought the other night.
Yeah, and there's just the guy that fought Tim Zhu the other. Can't remember his name. He's a middleweight. I lost his name, but anyway.
Not Trout, right? No, it wasn't
No,
Trout.
not Trout, but Austin Trout was incredible. But there's some good fighters. Coming up. It's probably not going to be like the Tapia Romero era. That's an era that I don't know if it'll ever happen again in New Mexico. But what a great time! But there are some good, solid fighters, good trainers. They're coming up. I expect some good things.
How about nationally? I mean, you still got Canelo Alvarez still on top.
Yeah.
Nationally,
David Benavidez. Devin Haney the other night was incredible. Of course, Terrence Crawford, but he's getting a little older. He's getting a little up there. It's kind of, he came on late, but
convincing decision.
Yeah, but they were impressive. Super
convincing
impressive.
Decision.
Overwhelming. Yes.
But you mentioned we got about a minute left. There's only so much you can do. It fights that. We mentioned Ali, a fight against Larry Holmes when he's 38. That should have never been even sanctioned, ever. That still bugs me that it was even sanctioned.
Yeah.
But it's all about the money grab.
Yeah.
Anything you want to wrap it up with, Dan? Again, what an honor it was to have you on this show. Thank you for everything you did for New Mexico boxing. I know I speak for a lot of boxing fans out there. I'm glad to be involved in that sport and the little corner I am. Anything else you want to tell us?
Oh, just thank you for having me, Ed. It's just so nice to be appreciated and for people to know what little I do. I love doing it. And if there's any way I can help the boxers in New Mexico, they can approach me anytime. Boxarchive@yahoo.com. Send me an email. And if I can help New Mexico boxers, I'll always be there for them.
You know what? You did quite a bit. And again, sir, congratulations on your induction into the New Mexico Boxing Hall of Fame.
Thanks, Ed.
For producer Alden Iwani, I'm Ed Nunez. We'll see you next week on the Sports Desk.